I am here today with Christophe Lapierre, the CEO of Sigma Air Mobility. Welcome.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for being here. On Sigma Air Mobility's website, you have a statement that says, the end product for customers is not vertiport nor eVTOL or APP, but air mobility service. Hence, the central role of the operator aggregating all expertise and value chain into its deployment. Based on this statement from Sigma Air Mobility's website, what exactly does the future of air mobility look like for you and your customers, and what are you working on?
Thank you. Yeah, I understand there's maybe some background to give here. So we are working on the electrification of aviation. So we're working with the future operations of both full electric vehicles and hybrid electric vehicles. And what we are looking for is the deployment solution encompassing the entire value chain. So what the projects are looking like is to assemble locally an ecosystem with all the different stakeholders to prepare for the operations. When you think about the automotive, the roads, the driving schools, the maintenance, everything is already there. For the aviation, with a new technology, everything is new and to be created. So that's what we are working on. All the components of the solution, from the training, from the ground infrastructure, from the charging, from the regulatory infrastructure to operate, and so on. Maybe the key points to have in mind is there's been a lot of very futuristic videos and everybody is very excited about this flying taxi. What is possibly important to see is more pragmatic deployment, so people can start to believe and to project themselves into this vision. And there will be two steps. There will be a first step where there's very small deployment, a few number or limited number of vehicles in the air with a point-to-point destination and routes. And then we can imagine maybe 5 to 10 years later an effective scale-up where you can see more vehicles in the skies.
Okay, and what's the biggest challenge you think with rolling out those vehicles?
Well, there are many challenges. When you enter a new market, there are only challenges, if I may say. So, of course, there's one to develop and to certify the technology. That's very capital intensive. That's why a lot of the new OEMs, new manufacturers are really working very hard to secure the funding. It costs a lot of money to certify and develop a new aircraft. Around 1 billion or 1.5 billion. Very often, this is the ballpark figure. The second challenge is the market acceptance.
Yeah.
That's really critical because we need to engage with local communities for them to accept this new type of vehicle. There's, of course, an element of regulation. Regulation in aviation is very stringent, so there are a lot of moving parts at the moment. The regulation is being developed. However, no one tested the full array of regulations from ground to air to training, staffing, maintenance. So we're just in a learning curve right now. And I would say these are the main challenges: the social acceptance, the funding, the technology, and certification.
Okay. And what are you doing to ensure that these vehicles are safe?
Well, we do participate with, as early as possible, with all the manufacturers to review the specs and to be proactive, to already give during the program phase, the development phase of the vehicles, to give our inputs and to support into the different choices about some technology or some adjustments into the product. For the certification, we rely on the certification authorities. So EASA in Europe, FAA in the US, who are certifying aircraft on the very same standards like a Boeing or an Airbus. So the requirements are exactly the same.
Yeah. And when it comes to cost efficiency, do you have anything to say about how cost efficiency might be a hurdle in the future of rolling out these vehicles?
It is a hurdle because you cannot innovate and from day one to be very cost effective because you've got billions in R&D, you need to prepare for all the infrastructure, and you will become cost effective when the product is being operated at high utilization rate. And to be operated at high utilization rate, you need to have a very vast network with a lot of vehicles being implemented, and then you can benefit from all the optimization across all the different components of the economical equation. So in the first stage, transparently, that will be a bit more costly than a usual black car on a certain trip when we talk about urban. But progressively, the cost will reduce because we have very low maintenance cost and we can go point to point in the air versus congested roads on the ground. There's another segment that is adjacent. That's the regional air mobility, where the cost efficiency can be reached much faster because the trips are usually longer. That's not intra-city, point to point. That's more intercity, from city to another city with longer distances. And that's where the prices will democratize first.
Okay. And is the target more towards delivery, or is it more just general transport that you're looking at?
Now, so ourselves, we are focusing on maybe what's the most challenging, the passenger version, because that's where we come from. And that's where we can add the more value, because that's our expertise.
Okay.
The delivery, the complexity is to have an aggregation of the demand upstream. So I think that's where all the different big firms already active into shipping already have their own brand into delivery, because they have all the volume and they can come to a cost efficiency. It's more difficult to enter. However, on the passenger market, there are a lot of integration. What we're discussing here in Fleet Days during the day, there's a lot of integration to plan with ground fleets for a door-to-door journey, and that's where we see a big opportunity.
Okay. And wrapping up, around what is your time frame for the possibility to roll out these vehicles?
So the vehicles are all either in flight testing or in certification phase.
Okay.
So they are flying. They are not approved yet for public transport, but we saw the first one coming up in China. There are a few other ones, American, that are on the edge of the verge of being certified, and in Europe it might be a couple of years. So we'll see the first vehicles within possibly 2 years already flying at a very small scale, few units here and there, and for a broader acceptance, adoption, that's more half of the next decade, where you will start to see more vehicles in every city.
Okay, great. And is there any last words you would like to share?
I think, thinking about our next generation, I'm extremely happy for them to work and to be working with all these innovators to bring this to life, because it's really a game changer to have electric propulsion embedded into aviation, where at the same time you reduce noise and you really provide an exponential array of opportunities with the new capabilities of these vehicles. So I think it's a brilliant future. I can already foresee our children, this generation, adopting this on a day-to-day basis, and I'm very happy to be working on it.
Awesome. I agree. And great. That's the conclusion. So thank you so much. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.